Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone who is watching on Facebook Live. Really appreciate it. My name is Josh Branch. I'm the Policy and Program Manager of the Justice and Accountability Center of Louisiana. And this is part two of a multi-part panel series that we're having to provide information to folks, during this time with COVID and everything. There's a lot of confusion as to how things are impacting the reentry community. We had a first video, which was a tax panel video, which went very well. And you could go to JAC's website to see that on our COVID resources tab. And the tax panel has a lot of helpful information, including some unemployment benefits and SBA benefits. This is the traffic panel, and we have two experts on traffic matter issues here that I'm going to introduce shortly. But first, I want to give a quick little warning spiel. So this panel, it doesn't serve as any legal advice, but it's just general information to help educate individuals on traffic matter issues and how they were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. It is recorded. It's being recorded on our end, but it's also on Facebook Live. So just keep that in mind for yourselves as well. Individuals are going to be muted, but I will be monitoring the comment section of the Facebook portion. So if you have any questions, we can look at them afterwards for our Q&A session. And like I said, after we finish the traffic panel portion, there's going to be a Q&A session towards the end. And when I mentioned the Facebook page, please note that JAC Louisiana in this thread, in this Facebook thread, means the Justice and Accountability Center of Louisiana. Any comments made by anyone else, other Facebook users of the like, other than Justice and Accountability Center of Louisiana, does not reflect the opinions or political views of the Justice and Accountability Center of Louisiana. And any such comments do not reflect legal opinions, analysis, or advice of the Justice Accountability Center of Louisiana, its attorneys, or staff. So like I said, my name is Joshua Branch. I'm the Policy and Program Manager of the Justice and Accountability Center of Louisiana, or JAC. I'm a graduate of Penn State University with degrees in political science and sociology. I went to Georgetown Law, where I was one of 8 public interest law students. I received honors for committing over 175 hours for pro bono work, and I received the Juvenile Justice Clinic's Public Interest Award. And here at JC, I focus on our clinics, data, and campaigns on criminal justice reform, specifically our Clean Slate campaign, which is hoping to automate the expungement process here in Louisiana. Next, I want to introduce you to Cherie Teamer. She's a staff attorney at the Justice and Accountability Center of Louisiana. Cherie is a graduate of Louisiana State University's Manship School of Mass Communications with a minor in African American Studies and Political Science. She attended Tulane University Law School, where she received her JD, among other distinctions. She works with JAC for our reentry attachment docket. She assists formerly incarcerated people in Orleans Parish and Jefferson Parish with reducing and eliminating excessive traffic fines, fees, and attachment. She also operates her own private law firm, Teamer Law. It's a solo family, real estate, and personal injury practice. Cherie gives clients options for flexible payment plans to help them get the representation that they need. And Cherie, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And next, I'm introducing Kelly Orians. She's the co-director of First 72 Plus. She graduated from the University of Colorado at Boulder, where she focused on the effect of public housing policy on the lives of mothers in Brooklyn, New York, whose children were involved in the criminal justice system. In 2012, Kelly was accepted into the David J. Epstein Program in Public Interest Law and Policy at UCLA School of Law. She specialized in critical race studies and business law and policy. In May 2015, she received her JD from UCLA School of Law, and later that year, she was awarded the Echoing Green Fellowship to launch Rising Foundations, which is a community-based development corporation dedicated to helping formerly incarcerated people become business owners and homeowners. Today, Rising Foundations is a division of the First 72 Plus, promoting economic empowerment services. In May 2016, she was sworn into the Louisiana State Bar. And Kelly, thank you again so much for sharing your time with us. So really this panel, like I said, we're gonna discuss traffic related issues. So one thing we've heard, and I'll just answer a couple quick questions that we've heard from a lot of folks wondering with all the confusion, is whether or not the Office of Motor Vehicles is open and how you can find information about that. So a lot of OMVs, I would say most Office of Motor Vehicle offices are open, including private public tag and auto companies that you can go to for OMV services. But if you're wondering if you want to see like where the closest one near you is that's actually open, you can go online to the OMV website, and that link is https://offices.omv.la.gov. And if you go there, it will list all the offices by parish and address that are open. If it's green, it's open. If it's red, it's closed. And it'll also show the office hours too. If you don't have internet access, but you'd like to give them a call, you can also give them a call at their customer service line, which is 225-925-6146. And again, that's the Office of Motor Vehicles customer service line number. Another question that we received from a lot of people is whether their license was, if their license expired during COVID, if it was still valid. And so the expiration date, if it expired between March 9th, 2020 and June 5th, 2020, the governor actually signed an executive order which extends the expiration date. So you would have until July 31st, 2020 to get your license renewed. So now I don't want to hog the mic too much. We'll hop in with our panelists. And Kelly, you're first up to bat on my little line of folks. So could you explain any like court changes since COVID, like what traffic court operations sort of look like right now, and whether or not traffic court is taking matters that are not scheduled?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now within Orleans Parish, traffic court is open. And if you have a matter that is not currently set for a court date, like you don't actually have a subpoena with a court date that's in the future, then you can go to the courthouse. You have to go through a pretty rigorous, fairly rigorous screening process at the beginning where you take your temperature, you need to have a mask. You have to actually sign a release document where you swear answers to a couple different questions relative to your exposure to COVID or whether or not you're currently sick. And then once you have to show, and you do not have to show ID at that stage, you just self-report. Then you go through the security process. You can bring your cell phone into traffic court, whether or not you're an attorney, which is good. And then you go straight to the clerk's office where you can get reset court dates for matters that were that occurred either during the shutdown, or it could be a traffic ticket from 5 or 20 years ago that you're trying to resolve. They'll give you a subpoena, and then you show up to court on that subpoena. I've seen that they're setting the earliest that you can get in is about the end of August, beginning of September right now, and sometimes even later. Has that been your experience too, Cherie?
Yeah, definitely. And just also, Kelly is talking directly to what it's like in Orleans Parish. Obviously, wherever parish you may be in, it has some different rules, but it's all pretty similar. I think they're still doing small dockets. They're still testing everyone, and the wait time for a hearing is pretty long. So,
yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for answering that, and Cherie for talking generally. Yeah, if you're in another parish outside of Orleans, I would encourage you to go to your parish court or city court's website to see what their protocols might be. And a lot of the times it might be easier to just call in to get a direct answer. So Cherie, I'll ask you this next question. So if someone was formally incarcerated and they're recently released, but they have outstanding traffic matters like fines and fees, and they can't afford them. What sort of options are there for them? Like what can they do to resolve that type of issue?
So there are a bunch of options. First, if you're formally incarcerated, obviously when you receive this traffic ticket is one of the most important things, right? If you receive the traffic ticket before you were incarcerated, that's important. If you got it after you were incarcerated, that can impact the kinds of options that you have. Secondly, it's also important how much time that you spent incarcerated. If you were only in jail for one night or one day, 2 days, right? That could also impact the kinds of options that you have. And then also when you got the ticket, right? If you got the ticket last week and then you went to jail for a week, right? You can't necessarily use that the same way. But there are options if you meet certain criteria as far as when you got the ticket, like I said, how long you were incarcerated, and those things. And what you can do is you can ask for credit for time served. That is based on the time that you spent in jail, relative to what the fines and fees would be. That accompany whatever traffic violation, traffic infraction you committed. You can also ask the court to dismiss the case, which is up to the city attorney, or whatever prosecutor in Jefferson Parish. It is a district attorney. You can ask them to dismiss the case if you have some kind of evidence or something like that. You can also ask for a motion to quash, which is very particular, but it's based on the time that you were first received the ticket and the last time you were notified by the court that you had a pending ticket. Now, if you ever failed to appear, meaning you were supposed to come to court on June 1st and you just didn't come, right? You could not get a motion to quash granted. And most courts, especially in Orleans Parish, most of the judges are very good at informing defendants of their particular rights in a particular case. So usually if you can ask the city attorney or ask the judge's staff, is there any way that I can resolve this, in a way that'll be easier for me, right? Those are just some of the options: credit for time served, motion to quash, and then the prosecutor choosing to dismiss. And that's the kind of the briefest way that I can explain it. Kelly, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that.
No, that was perfect. I think like traffic court is really tough. You don't see a lot of cases go to like trial in traffic court. I've never seen that, with the exception of probably, DWIs. It's all a matter of just of making your case to the judge or to the prosecutor and helping them to understand your position. Like Cherie said, Orleans, Orleans Parish, the city attorneys in there and the judges and their staff in there, they are very willing to work with people. And although it can be really scary to go into those courtrooms without an attorney, if you can find the courage to speak up for yourself and to explain your position and to explain what you can't afford, because these tickets can be really expensive. I see a lot of clients met with really positive results. So yeah.
Thank you both for that. Yeah, and I think that's really important, this like self-advocacy piece that you're touching on, Kelly, as well. I think a lot of folks, these systems aren't really, folks walk into a courtroom and it's not necessarily designed in such a way that you feel like you're willing to speak up for yourself. But if you're going in by yourself, now's definitely the moment to do so. And COVID-19 too offers like a really unique situation where so many people are unemployed that maybe judges this time around are a bit more sympathetic to the plight of folks. So I want to hop into another question. If someone's recently released from incarceration and they weren't provided a form of ID, what is something that they can do to get an ID? I imagine this is probably a pretty complicated process. But Kelly, if you want to start with that one.
Yeah. So first I want to say that people being released from state prisons in Louisiana are supposed to be issued IDs. And so I just want to take a moment to make some space for that, and especially if you're the loved one of someone who's incarcerated, by reaching out in advance to the transition specialist or to the records department at the facilities where they're incarcerated. And this is specific to people who are incarcerated as state prisoners inside of state prisons. You can do a lot of work for your loved one by getting this on the radar of the records department to make sure that it's printed for them. Because as Josh said, it can be really complicated to get these things once you're out. And so taking advantage of that service in the prison is really important. And so, but you need to give folks at the prison usually a heads up, work with them so that they can get it printed and get it over to the prison where your loved one's incarcerated, because not every prison does it in-house. But then let's say you are released, everybody that's released from the prison system, whether that's a state prison or whether they're a state prisoner inside of a parish prison, because our state prisons are overpopulated and about a half of our state prisoners are in parish prisons, they'll be released with like a prison ID. And that prison ID serves as a form of identification for purposes of getting a state ID. So if you've ever had a state ID before, then you actually have the option of going to a title company, one of these private title companies like ABC Title. I'm not a paid spokesperson for any of these companies, but there are a couple private title companies where you mostly see these as places where people go to, change titles on cars or get driver's licenses renewed if you have no suspensions. You can go to one of those companies. You are going to pay about twice what you're going to pay the OMB. They charge about $36, whereas OMB charges $18 for issuance of a new ID, depending on your age. And you just have to go, first you have to call because they're still under COVID procedures. You'll call one of these companies and you'll ask to schedule an appointment. You'll go at your scheduled appointment time with $36. They'll actually be able to look you up in the system and they'll be able to see your picture and your old ID and verify you in that way on the spot and issue you an ID that way. If you've never had an ID, then along with your prison ID, you also need to get a copy of your birth certificate and a copy of your social security card in order to go to an Office of Motor Vehicles to get an ID from them in person. In which case, I would really strongly encourage people to check the Express Lane website. I put a link to the wait times on the website in the Facebook Live chat thread, so that you can judge based on which one you want to go to. And you also need to make sure that that is an office that provides those types of services. I want to say with about 90% confidence that every OMV office can do state IDs. Not everyone can do driver's licenses, driver's license renewals, or driver's license reinstatement, but you should be pretty safe going to any OMV. You just want to check the wait times and you want to make sure they're open, because OMV is sporadically, or they're closing offices based on spread. If contract tracers are tracing it back to an OMV office, then that OMV office will be closed indefinitely, and it's changing by the day.
Yeah,
Right now, I think the office in New Orleans East is indefinitely closed while they do. I might be speaking out of turn. That might have changed, but for example, it was closed because of spread there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't even know that. Thank you for that information.
That's right. They're also, Office of Motor Vehicles is super active on Facebook. They post a couple times a day and once a day at the beginning of the day with offices that are open. So following them on Facebook is a good idea.
Great. Cherie, did you want to add anything to that? No? Okay. So Cherie, this next question is for you. If someone had outstanding child support payments while they're incarcerated, maybe they were prior to incarceration, or maybe they started to build up while they were incarcerated, and then they find out that their license is suspended, what is something that what can they do to try to get out of that situation?
Yeah, this is kind of a complicated area of the law that we actually had a call about earlier with the Building Bridges Committee that the Louisiana State Bar Association actually kind of authorizes to work on issues around reentry. One of the biggest problems is it's kind of like a hit or miss type situation with who you should talk to and who you shouldn't. A lot of times, if you have an outstanding child support obligation and it is run by the state, because there's two ways your child support obligation can be run. It can be the state that collects payments or the state that monitors those payments on behalf of the child, or it can be a civil district court for wherever it is that you are that also monitors it. Usually when you have a child support issue that's been reported to the state for your license, your driver's license, it's usually something that's monitored by the state. So let me just start there, right? So with that being said, if the state is monitoring your payments and you're behind, one of the first things you can do is try to contact your child support caseworker, because a lot of times the Department of Children and Family Services will have a payment plan, some kind of incentive. Like right now they have something where you can pay a certain percentage of your arrears to try to catch up. And then usually when you put some money down, then they will they'll remove that hold with the Office of Motor Vehicles, because it's all purely administrative. This isn't something that they've gone into court and got a court order to put a hold on your license, which is also something that's important to know, because you can't just go to the judge and say, they have my license, how do I get it off, right? This is something that you have to work through with the administrative authority, which is the Department of Children and Family Services. And usually you can call there and give either, I think it's your name or your child's name. And they can look your case up, figure out who your caseworker is, and give you that contact information. So what I would suggest to anybody who has that kind of outstanding child support balance is to contact the caseworker to really figure out what it is that he or she is willing to let you do to maybe withdraw that hold, because it's kind of arbitrary, just to be honest, and it is not consistently done across the board. Some people have arrears and never get reported to the OMB. So that's where you should start. And then usually they can authorize the withdrawal of that hold. I don't think, and Kelly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the OMB, if that is your problem, is the first place to start. I think you have to start with your child support caseworker.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I actually can't think of a circumstance except for, so insurance lapses. The only time you ever start with OMB to resolve a hold might be with insurance lapses. Otherwise, OMB is really just a depository that other agencies use in order to try to protect their interests or get results for their interests. So the OMB doesn't have a dog in the fight. Like, they don't care. And actually, from what in speaking with OMB, they don't like to see a lot of suspensions on people's licenses. They would prefer, for people to be licensed. They don't have any power over getting a lot of these holds lifted. You have to go to the agency that put the hold on you, and that agency, whether it's a traffic court, Department of Children and Family Services, or a subsidiary child support enforcement office, they're going to be listed in the suspension, and usually they'll even have the contact information. So that's the place to start.
Thank you for that. So one big thing, and it's almost like it's a huge benefit towards getting some sort of mobility and resources, is the provisional driver's license, the PDL. So Kelly, could you talk about what a provisional driver's license is, why it's so important for folks who are a part of the reentry population, and what are some of the rules that apply to this license?
Definitely, yeah. So I'll also put a link in the Facebook thread for the provisional driver's license pamphlet. We have it on our website. But a provisional driver's license is a Class E driver's license, which is the basic driver's license that the average person applies for, but it only lasts for 1 year. And it's a license that you are eligible for only if you have done at least 1 year in prison or jail, prison or parish prison. You were not in prison or jail for third or subsequent DWI or vehicular homicide, and you so those are the two big qualifiers. Then you're immediately eligible for it if you do not have any tickets out of state because there are a lot of rules that guide how certain states can allocate driver's licenses. Then they have to honor holds in other states or suspensions in other states. So you can't have any unresolved tickets in other states that are suspending your driver's license. And as of right now, you had to have previously held a driver's license. If you did not previously hold a driver's license, then you have to go to driving school and you have to get a driver's license certificate and some documents that are given to you in a sealed envelope. As a quick aside and bit of a suggestion for folks that might know somebody that can get you a driver's certificate for less than the average cost of about $400 to $450, be very, very, very careful, because the Office of Motor Vehicles audits these certificates every year. And if they find that you received a certificate from an unaccredited agency, they will suspend your license with no notice. So there is really no workaround. You had to have previously held a driver's license, in which case you're grandfathered in, or you have to go to driving school and you have to bring that information to the Office of Motor Vehicles. But the beauty of this license is that you're eligible for it regardless of the suspensions that you have in your license, unless those are suspensions are for tickets out of state. And the spirit of it is so that people who have done time in prison and are trying to get back on their feet can drive legally while they work on resolving those things. And the Office of Motor Vehicles and the Louisiana State Legislature really acknowledged that access to a driver's license is really important when trying to access employment and obviously when trying to access transportation. One note on this, and something to be really conscious of, is even though you are a legal driver when you have a PDL, PDLs are confusing. Not every law enforcement agency is totally on board and understands how you could have a driver's license that's valid while simultaneously have outstanding tickets. And so you could still theoretically, while you're driving on a PDL, get pulled over and be told that you are wanted for arrest, that you have a traffic attachment while you have a valid driver's license. So having a valid PDL, a valid Class E under the PDL guidelines, does not mean that you don't currently have attachments in various traffic courts. Orleans NOPD, this about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, made a statement publicly and codified into their policies that they will not arrest for driving on a suspended and they will not arrest for traffic attachments. It still sometimes happens, and it most certainly happens in other parishes. So it's still really important to be aware that you could still be pulled over and you still could be arrested for an outstanding traffic attachment, even though it's technically not supposed to happen.
Thank you for that, Kelly. And Cherie, did you want to add anything to that?
No.
So what if someone, and Cherie, I'm going to ask you this question, if someone was on a payment plan, but they missed a payment, or they can no longer afford the payment plan, especially if there's some sort of like COVID-19 related issue, what's something that someone could do to try to resolve that issue?
So you're saying, wait, because I might have missed part of your question. You're saying someone was on a payment plan and they missed a payment, or they can't afford to continue paying?
So, yeah, sorry about that. I guess it was kind of like a joined question, combined question. So the first question being, so what if someone was on a payment plan and they missed a payment? Let's start there. What should they do?
And this is a payment plan that is with the Office of Motor Vehicles, or a payment plan that's with a particular court?
Payment plan with OMV, but let's also add in the court that you brought it up. Both are important.
So if you miss a payment plan with the Office of Motor Vehicles, miss a payment, it's gonna be tough, because they do not look kindly on missing a payment, period. If you miss a payment, and Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, you end up having to start all over with the payment plan. You have to pay a certain percentage of what you still owe to the Office of Motor Vehicles as a down payment in order to secure a new payment plan. And that percentage, I think, is 30%. So however much you owe, they take 30% of all of those fines and fees and they say you have to pay that down before they will give you another payment plan. The next thing is if you have a payment plan with a particular court, whether it's Orleans Parish or Jefferson Parish, and those are fines and fees that are directly related to the traffic infraction or whatever happened, right? Those payment plans, usually the court assesses a contempt fee of anywhere from, I think, $100 to $150 based on the fact that you failed to appear and try to explain why you didn't have a payment, and the fact that you just didn't pay. So one of the first things I would say about that is if you can't make a payment on a court scheduled payment plan, you should appear, because that's going to be your only real opportunity. If you're representing yourself, that's going to be your only chance to let the judge know, look, I know that I am supposed to pay $50 today, but I cannot pay. What can I, how can we do this? And most judges will then say, okay, we'll defer your payments longer, or we'll figure out some will even offer community service or some other way to pay, right? But you're not going to get that if you've already missed it in the past. And by not, I mean, it's not very likely that the judge will dismiss a contempt because you failed to appear and explain. And a lot of times people just want to ignore something when they are like, okay, I can't pay. Let me just forget about this till forever. Yeah. Well, just so you know, also, if it is a court-ordered fine and fee, not the Office of Motor Vehicles, but a court-ordered fine and fee that you have not paid, you will be an arrest attachment will be put out for you. And that's what's going on in Orleans Parish. They used to just put a clerical attachment, which just meant that they put a note on there, your minutes. But what they really are doing now is putting a real attachment out for you. So if you get pulled over, you could go to jail, right? I'm not saying that's 100% what will happen. I'm not even saying it's 50%, but you could possibly go to jail, if there is an attachment out for you. And in Jefferson Parish, they always do it. In Westwego, they always do it. If you missed a payment in Second Parish, First Parish, Gretna, or Westwego, you will definitely have an arrest attachment out for you. So if I were, anybody who's watching this, I would just go to the court, because if you haven't been arrested, you can just go to the court and say, look, I need to get back on my payment plan. What do I need to do? And usually, like Kelly said earlier, the court staff in all of these places are pretty helpful. So they will tell you exactly what you need to do. And a lot of courts, although there are smaller dockets, are taking off docket matters, meaning your court case is not set for today. But if it is something like there's an attachment out for your arrest and you have appeared, usually they will at least withdraw that attachment, even if you can't actually have your matter addressed that day. You can't know, are you guilty, not guilty, all that. So that's my long-winded answer to your question, Josh.
No, thorough. We're not looking for the short stuff. Kelly, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that was perfect.
Okay. And so is there any, are courts, from your experiences, taking any consideration into if folks were laid off because of COVID-19 and now they can't afford a payment plan? Is that something that's sort of added into their calculus, I suppose?
I mean, for the Office of Motor Vehicles, no, they do not care about anything. for lack of a better phrase, they're not going to take into account anything. And that's why I tell a lot of my private clients and the clients that I take for JC that I cannot talk to the Office of Motor Vehicles on your behalf. There's nothing that I can do. Even if I went down there, there's no wiggle room. So if your license is suspended by the Office of Motor Vehicles, you can also go to jail for those suspensions. So if you know that your license is suspended and you need to get this 1/3 of what you owe to start a payment plan, just be mindful of that. I don't know. I've been in the courts a couple times in traffic, municipal court in Orleans. And I don't know anyone using COVID. I mean, Kelly, have you had any experience? I mean, I don't want to say it's possible. Huh?
It's so ubiquitous, everyone's impacted by COVID, right? That I think I think making the point that you're unemployed, although that can also backfire. Like some folks that are on unemployment, folks are also aware that there was, the additional CARES Act funding. And by no means am I saying that is what everyone needed, but that I could see that backfiring with folks that are like, oh, so then you have more than enough money to pay because you've been on unemployment.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think everybody, what I tell people when they go to court to represent themselves is to tell the judge the truth. Most of, especially in Orleans Parish, all the judges are pretty flexible. I would say almost all, if not all. And so if you say like, look, I haven't worked since February, I don't know how I'm going to like feed my family. I'm really just trying to find a way to resolve this. Usually they're helpful. They can set your payments out for 6 months, right? They're setting cases right now, I think in October. So there is a way. I got a case in St. Charles Parish last week set out to November. So it is possible to have it extended longer. That's also more, like Kelly said, that could backfire too, because it's more for you to keep up with. But there are options as far as extending the plan longer, like to a farther out date or something like that.
To add just one point on that, what the point that Cherie's making as well shows how crucial it is to stay on top of these tickets before they fall into delinquency. If you can prolong an active ticket, let's say I'm out driving today, I get a traffic ticket. What happens is then I have to go to the clerk's office, or I just decide to plead guilty and take care of it. Or if I want it to be extended because I can't pay, you got to go get a court date. Then you go to that court date, and then you can continue to set it out before you plead guilty, or you can plead guilty and ask for the payment plan to be set out. But if you fail to show up and that ticket falls into delinquency and results in a suspension, and then you come back, you can't, in my experience, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong on this, Cherie, you can't just by getting on a payment plan necessarily get your driver's license reinstated. A lot of these courts, especially outside of Orleans, will hold it against you until you pay in full to give you your reinstatement privileges back. So if you get on a payment plan, you're going to have to pay it out before you can go back. Whereas if you don't let the ticket fall, your driver's license is never going to get into suspension. You're never going to have to worry about getting it out. So staying on top of those dates is crucial.
Yeah, Kelly's right about that. I think the hardest part, though, is some rural parishes, like she was touching on, do not allow payment plans. Like I have spoken to more than one rural parish that's like says, we do not do payment plans. We don't care if your client is incarcerated, formally incarcerated, has no job. They do not do it. They do not reduce tickets. So it really does depend on where you get the ticket. And that's why I would say I want to express even more the need for, if you get the ticket and there's a court date set, that you attend, under pretty much any circumstances. You have all the money, you have no money, you like transportation issues, anything, because ultimately that's going to be your best chance to get anything done with that traffic ticket. By the time you've missed court and you're getting a reset and they have to go through contempts and see that you didn't come for 6 months and all that, that's when you already kind of have a narrative built up against you that really can hurt your ability to defend yourself in court.
Totally.
Thank you both for that insider information. I'm looking at our Facebook post. Anyone feel free, if you're watching and have a traffic matter question, feel free to add it. I don't see any questions right now, but so I just want to sort of give the floor one more time to y'all. If Kelly, if there's, I suppose, like one overall piece of advice, overarching piece of advice that you perhaps, maybe it's something that you're telling your clients pretty regularly, or like a number one issue that you typically see. Just want to give you the mic for that second, and feel no pressure to answer right away. And Cherie, I'll also ask you the same question, just to give our listeners a bit more time if they have any questions to add them to the comment section.
Yeah, I think it's what I sort of just touched on right before, and it really only carries true in my experience within like New Orleans and Orleans Parish Traffic Court is to communicate with the court and to communicate with the judges about what's going on. It's those lapses in communication, and I by no means am suggesting that that's easy. It really is tough to stay on top of this in that way. But by communicating and not allowing stuff to fall, you're gonna save yourself a lot of headaches. But then also, you know, these traffic tickets are a huge source of revenue for these cities all across Louisiana. And even I'm a former public defender, and you know, part of our budget comes from the same system. And so it's a problem. I mean, it really it's one of the biggest issues that we face when trying to help people rejoin the workforce and get back on their feet. And it's a major source of debt management. And I certainly don't, as all I know, all three of us sitting on this call don't want to take this system for granted and want to envision a better system that doesn't just trap people in this way. Traffic policing and driver's licenses, access to a driver's license, are racial justice issues, and the barriers that stand in their way are a perfect example of systemic racism, and they deserve in a lot of attention. And so I guess I would say vote would be my biggest takeaway. Vote once in all elections, including some of the lower level and not very sexy elections that folks don't participate as much in.
Like traffic court.
Like traffic court, exactly. These are the issues that really, really hit us on a day-to-day basis. So I would definitely encourage everyone to get out and vote.
And Cherie, to you?
I guess just to say, what do I normally tell clients if they're going in court themselves? I say first of all, plead not guilty, because if you plead guilty, you have no chance to change your plea. It's very hard. Kelly and I have tried to withdraw guilty pleas before. Sometimes we've been lucky and sometimes not. So I would say do not plead guilty. Always try to talk to the DA or the city attorney to try to figure out if there's any way that ticket can get reduced or dismissed. And usually city attorneys and prosecutors, but also, like I said, depending on the jurisdiction, in Orleans, they're pretty into negotiating. They're pretty open to negotiating a ticket, right? There's different things that happen when you have a traffic accident or DUI that are more nuanced. But for all intents and purposes, general speeding and those kind of moving violations, you can help get resolved in some way. I think as you get into Jefferson Parish, you may be looking at a higher fine. You may be looking at higher fees, even if your ticket is reduced. And then getting outside of that, St. Charles, Marrero, you know, you're really going to be in a tough situation if you're trying to really reduce tickets. But still, like I said, try, because it doesn't hurt to try. If you have the time to go sit there for an hour or 2 hours and figure out if you can talk to the DA, that's your best chance of getting anything done with your ticket. I would echo what Kelly's sentiment is. If you are concerned about the fact that you have to pay $8,000, $10,000 in traffic fines and fees, like some of my clients, you should look at the way the justice system is set up. And you should actually care who is going to be the first city court judge, the traffic court judge, who is going to be the justice of the peace, who, you know, all those people get to hire their own staff. They don't have anyone telling them who to hire. They get to help make the policy that the legislature then goes to them and say, well, you're the traffic court judge. What do you think we should do with this, right? So if you're concerned about any of these things, and especially in the way the movement has blossomed over the past month, I would say that you should focus on that and ask the questions of the people who are going to be these judges, because there's going to be an open traffic seat in the next 6 months, I think. There's also a current open first city court, which is a civil proceeding, but it's still like a small claims. It's a seat for small claims is also open right now. Mm-hmm. And these are the judges that everyday people interface with the most.
Yep.
right? I have a civil law practice where I never see I could see a pro se litigant probably every other moon, right? But when it comes to being in traffic court and municipal court and small claims court in Second Parish and First Parish in Gretna City Court, you are actually interacting with these people, and that matters. So, you know, I don't mean to like stand on a soapbox, but that's the only way we're going to impact any change within the way that fines and fees are structured. The fact that many departments that are literally built, the public defenders are literally built to defend the public, but they can only survive if people pay fines and fees. So, you know, and that is hypocritical almost, because they need you to pay your fines and fees, but you're supposed to have a public defender for free.
Yep.
So, you know, I just would impress upon people of the importance of participation in all levels of government systems and talking to the people who are the judge when you get in there, because you elected them. And if you don't understand something, that's why I try to empower people, I guess, as an answer to your question, Josh. I try to empower my clients to feel like if you are really going to go there yourself and you don't want me to go for you, you should try to feel as comfortable as you can, because these people work for you. They work in the government, and it's their job to help you through this. Of course, you may deserve some level of punishment, whatever infraction that you commit, but they need to help you, and you should feel comfortable asking them.
Thank you both for that. I think I'm ready to run like a 5K right now. I'm so
Okay.
hyped. Get the social justice vibe in me going. I don't see any questions on our Facebook page. Thank you, Kelly, for adding the links that you did. But yeah, I want to thank you both for sharing your time with us today. I really appreciate it. And, you know, I know that there are viewers out there watching this, and it's my hope that some of this information got out to someone who really needs it. For those of you who are watching, when this video ends, it'll be on our Facebook page, so you can rewatch it there. And we'll also be uploading it onto the JAC website under our COVID resources tab. And in that tab as well, if you were to scroll to the bottom, or scroll down at least, there's also our tax panel. And that's where all the future panels are going to be hosted. So with that being said, I want to again thank you both so much. I will pause our recording and take us off of Facebook Live. And again, everyone who watched, really appreciate it, and look out for our next panel. Thank you, Kelly and Cherie.
Thanks, Josh. Bye, everyone.
So we are now no longer live.
Okay.